Welcome our community. We are so excited that you have decided to sign up and participate in our research project. We cannot do this without you. Thank you so much for participating. We're confident that you are going to gain some really great insight in yourself, in your feelings and perceptions right now, with the way that you are having to approach your leadership role and the challenges that you're facing. So we are here to give you some tips on how to get started and some further explanation of what the survey is all about. And then you'll be off to the races and able to complete the survey. So Tom, can we start please by just sharing a little bit more about what is this tool Change Grid that we're using for the survey?
Of course, and I second Adrian and thanking you for participating and promising you will get actionable insights out of your agreement to participate. The tool behind this is called the Change Grid, and what it measures is productive tension, actually just measures tension, productive or not, regarding mission critical activities. So when you begin the survey, you will be asked some questions about leadership activities, and it's just a chance to think of you as a leader, and you will notice that certain feelings arise as you do it, and that just means the questions are doing their job.
So we want to make sure that you allow enough time and space to really give yourself some thinking time. Tom, how much time would you recommend that people allow?
We did a little pilot group, and one of the points they said to be sure to mention is because all of us have done surveys where we cram it in between meetings and we answer a bunch of multiple choice questions. Think of this as time to really think. So make space, meaning try to do it when you have some space before it and some space after. It can be done in 20 minutes, but it wouldn't be done best if you feel you're rushing to do it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. We heard that as well in our pilot group. Okay, so the other piece that we wanted to get into is what it looks like when we get into the grid. So when you click the link and you get into the survey, Tom, explain what that interface looks like. And while you do that, I'll pull up our tip sheet to help guide them through answering those questions.
Yeah, so some of the feedback we've gotten is it can be cumbersome to remember the definition of the 4 factors that you're measuring. And so we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to do that and keep this visible. It's in the PowerPoint. Keep this visible as you go, because the system makes you toggle back and forth, and we don't want you to have to do that, and we don't have the power to change the platform. So we're measuring your perception, and the most important thing to remind you, this is not a psychometric tool. It doesn't measure traits. It measures states. This is how you are perceiving these 4 factors at a given time. So it's dynamic. And that's one of the things that helps to coach on the back end, is to decide how you want to be if you're not the way you want to be. But for now, the only thing you need to know is you're going to be asked for each mission critical activity. What is your perception of the size of the activity? And that really means, does it take a lot of resources or not take a lot of resources? Does it take a lot of time? Does it take a lot of money? And so you can have a good perception of how big is this? And the next question is rating your ability. This is very concrete. Do you have the knowledge, the skill? Do you have the resources available, large or not? You will notice right away that these 4 factors influence one another, and that's okay. Which, before I mention the other 2, let's just pause and recognize for just a second that it is you having a conversation with you. And you'll notice sometimes inner voices will say, this shouldn't be that hard. Well, what we find is very easy things can be challenging, because as a leader, you don't perform any activity in a vacuum. If the world would stop and you had to do that spreadsheet, you would say, my ability to perform that is a 12 on a 12 scale. But in reality, it could be a 6. So be honest with yourself. If you're feeling like this is challenging, then rate it as challenging. So the next question is, what is the challenge? I just mentioned an activity that's easy, and yet at this moment it's challenging. And I use the milk example here. If my wife, this is actually a real story. I had a big presentation the next day. I was running late. The traffic was bad and I hadn't left the office. And my lovely bride said, Tom, could you bring home some milk on the way home? And at that moment, my blood boiled. I can't possibly manage it. You would have thought she had asked me to go to the Himalayas and get a mantra, but it's just because I was full. I had no psychic RAM. So my ability, and I never say 12, that's just me, but you get to say 12, is 11.5, which doesn't exist on a 12 scale. So I put 11. But at that moment, the challenge was 11. Bringing home milk seemed absolutely unachievable. So these work together. So think of ability as concrete, and you'd say, yeah, it's relatively high. Challenge at this moment, it's challenging. Can I bring home milk next week? Then my tension would go down. And importance is interesting in that when it comes to some of the people things, it might be relatively low importance to you right now. So just be honest about that. Don't be thinking, well, it's going to be important next week. But if you're a CEO, you're going to say it's an 11 for the organization, but maybe right now it's not getting the attention it needs. So again, you're not having a conversation with us first. You're having a conversation with yourself. You will get a report after you complete it. And I promise some of those activities will change right away, just as you look at it through a new lens. And here's a hint. That's part of the goal of the process, to have you rethink some of them. And some of them you'll want to change. And we'll talk about ways to do it. And some of them you'll want to pay more attention to. And some of them you say, I'm fine with it there. So for now, to make it easy, don't overthink it. Just understand the 4 factors and answer how you feel in the moment.
A big tip, that a realization that I had when I took the change grid the first time was that I went through a lot of the shoulds. Right? That's the hard part, is that the intellectual piece saying, well, this should be easy. Like your milk example, going to get milk should be easy. And right now it's not. And so when Tom says don't overthink it, it's really being very honest with yourself and not changing your rating because of it, because you're thinking it should be, right? And it's just capture that first reaction as best you can, because that's where the real honesty is.
And that reminds me to just mention again, you probably saw it. This is anonymous unless you explicitly say we can share it. And we find a lot of people want to get on and they want to say who they are and learn together. And of course, this is a community of conversation. We welcome that, but we mask all people that haven't raised their hand. And so that's important for you to recognize this. But in those shoulds, I find the best thing to do is to have a conversation with my colleague, Adrian, and say, I'm feeling like I'm shoulding myself, and then to help to get clarity. But again, we don't force that on anybody.
Yep. Great. So hopefully that helps you on your way as you open up the change grid. And again, make sure that you've got enough space, a good 30 minutes, 20 minutes to complete it with some padding, before to get grounded, and after, if you do find you're spending a little more time in that reflection, so you're not feeling overly rushed to get to your next critical thing. And really take it in. And that's what we heard in our pilot group, was that people, the questions elicit some thought that you might not have had, some reflection that you might not have had. And so just by reflecting on these activities could give you some fresh new ideas of how you want to show up or where you need to focus your energy now. So
Yeah,
I think, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you, Adrian. Go ahead.
No, I was going to wrap us up. I think we're closed with any final tips. And
I will put an
yeah,
umlaut on that of what Adrian just said, which is that we are hearing that even investing 20 minutes to think of ourselves as a leader is challenging today. So what's in it for you is you get to have a conversation with you that you probably are having monkey mind go around and around and around. So this really will add value just by sitting still and thinking about these mission critical leadership activities. And we're grateful to you, and I'm sure you will get actionable insights, and we look forward to debriefing with you.
Yep, exactly. So thanks for completing the survey. Let us know at connect@leadershipbeyond.com if you run into any trouble as you're completing the survey, and otherwise stay tuned. We will be following up as we close out the research and providing some debrief opportunities, as well as some articles and other summaries of the research work. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. See you on the other side.